Hey guys, we are talking about grief today, and it is one of my favorite things to talk about because it is one of the most important things we can do to experience more joy and freedom and happiness in our life. And it is one of the things that we absolutely avoid the most because almost all of us do not like to feel pain. We do not like to feel sadness, and we often go to great lengths to avoid those feelings. But when we avoid touching our pain and touching our grief, we limit the amount of joy. So if Brene Brown says that if we numb our pain, we numb our joy. So if you're like, no, I'm not going to feel this pain, I'm not going to feel this pain, well, guess what? Your joy is going to be stunted here. But when you allow yourself to touch your grief and acknowledge the pain and feel it, it starts to expand the amount of joy that you get to experience too. Okay. And grief is often thought of as attached to someone dying or an animal dying, but grief can really be connected to any type of loss. This can be the loss of a relationship, even if no one passed. Maybe you've just drifted with someone and you feel a lot of sadness that you're not close anymore, or maybe even something good, like someone had a child, which is a beautiful thing, but because of that, your friend had a child, or even you had a child, and your life is different now. That person's not as available to you, or you're noticing, I just don't have the space that I used to have for my work or for the things that I used to do. So all of that is considered a loss. If you move to a new neighborhood and you miss your old neighborhood, the tricky thing about grief is that sometimes, even when really good things happen, there's still loss. I was single for years and I really wanted to be married. And then I finally got married and I actually had to grieve my singleness. Like I felt some sadness because I missed the autonomy and the network of people that I had built who were single and the way that we took care of each other. And all of that shifted when I got married. So grief can really be about any type of loss that you feel in your life. And one of the best ways to begin the process of engaging your grief is just to notice what are the beliefs that you have around it. Most of us around a lot of things have a series of beliefs that we have developed through growing up, and they have helped us, and that's why we had them. But then when we want to start thriving, they start to limit us. So one of the beliefs that I held about grief for a long time was that it doesn't accomplish anything. And one of the reasons I received this belief is when I was in high school, I was actually connected to the Columbine shooting. It happened in Littleton. Columbine was the rival high school of where I went. And my mom would watch hour after hour of news footage, and she was so distraught about it. And I just remember at that young age thinking, man, this doesn't do anything. Like she can cry and she can watch footage and it doesn't change anything. And so that was one of the beliefs I developed. Another belief that some people develop is that grief is going to overtake them. Like if I even let myself touch that pain just the tiniest bit, I'm going to be drowned in it. Like I'm going to open the door and the floodgates are going to come and it's going to bury me and I'm never going to be able to get out. And I want to give you a tip for this. You can actually tap into your grief and tap out, kind of like a wrestler, like wrestling, you have partner wrestling, you can like tap your partner and get out of the ring. You can actually allow yourself to feel for a little bit. And then when it gets overwhelming, you can stop because it's going to be there until it passes. So it doesn't have to happen all at once. And one of the ways that you can tap into it is just begin to acknowledge the losses in your life. Whether it's like, wow, my mother really wasn't there for me in some really times that I needed her, or I don't have the relationship with my kids that I thought I had, or at this age, I thought I would be at this career level and I'm not. It could be anything that feels like a loss. Start to acknowledge it and then just notice where you feel that sadness or loss in your body. And when I say that, if you're thinking, how do you do that? Well, one of the ways you can literally just imagine a copy machine scanning your body and you just notice like, I'm feeling tension in my shoulders, or stress in my chest or anxiety in my chest. And you can notice, I'm feeling this sadness, maybe in your neck or in your belly or something like that. And you can just be with it. Just be with the sadness. You don't have to try to fix it. You don't have to try to purge it. Just sit with it. And if it begins to rise up, usually you can feel it when you're going to cry, like comes up in your throat. If it starts to rise up in you in the form of tears, don't resist it. Just go with it and allow yourself to feel that, because you are literally purging the grief and the sadness from you, and you're expanding your capacity for joy and happiness, which is what we all want. So that's part of the process. You guys, the sneaky thing about grief is that it can come in waves, and it doesn't always come at one time. You might be at a concert and you're watching two people interact, and it reminds you of a relationship that you have or that you don't have that you really want. And you might feel sadness. It might be a holiday and you're looking at cards trying to find one for like your mom or your dad, and you're reading these cards and you're like, man, my parents are not these things. And it feels inauthentic to give them a card saying this. Grief can come in these sneaky places, and the invitation to more joy is when the grief does come, to be present to it, to process it, to not judge yourself for feeling sad. And eventually it will lessen. Henry Nouwen, who's an amazing Christian writer and thinker, talks about how it can feel like this black hole, this abyss, but every time you grieve and you circle it, you're making the hole smaller and smaller and smaller. So it might feel endless. You might think, I've been sad about this already. I've cried about this already. Well, if it's still coming up, there's more work to be done. And there is joy waiting for you on the other side. So I want to encourage you guys, this is a courageous thing, and joy requires courage. And I know you guys can do it. Post below and make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the goods. All right, have a great day.